Thanks for locking in with 77 Flavors of Chicago. We're your host, Dario.
And I'm Sarah, and I hope you're ready to learn with us.
Today, we talking about Rush Street. Yeah, buddy.
Arguably the first street.
It could be.
It could be.
It could be. Could be the first. Could be.
It could also not be the first.
Right. It's just up there. We know that. But first,
push your phone in a little bit.
Man, don't worry about this phone. This phone trash. I'm just playing.
Damn.
But first, did you know that Chicago's first mayor, William B. Ogden, also had his house built by Chicago's first architect?
Wow.
Yeah, did y'all know that? Y'all probably like, what? Say that again? Let me say it again for you. Okay. Chicago's first mayor had his house built by Chicago's first architect.
Wow.
And that architect name was John M. Van Osdol. And the house was located on Rush Street, of course. It was a mansion, not a house. Sorry to disrespect you like that, Mr. Ogden. And is located on Rush, Wabash, Ontario, and Erie. So that little block. And Wabash was not called Wabash back then.
What was it called?
I did not write that down. I just know it wasn't Wabash. Begin with a C. But it wasn't Wabash. So fun fact there.
Interesting.
Fun fact, yeah. The house obviously did not survive the
fire.
The fire. But how's your week going? Or how was your week? What was the best part of your week?
Well,
I'm gonna go first this time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey man, we launched a second podcast.
We sure did.
That was the only thing I was worried about.
So long ago.
It does. We put a lot of work into that. Besides the monetary going to these places, but like we really did think about how we wanted this to go, and it's going to evolve and get better than anything.
Yeah, of course, as we get feedback. I think, and we do a bit more research, and we kind of like feel it out.
Do what we did with this podcast? You know what I'm saying?
Basically. Like except this new one is starting 10,000 steps ahead of the first one.
Yeah, 1 million.
So like if you this iteration of 77 is like number 55. You know what I mean?
Real.
Like we've changed so many things about this podcast that I'm sure people have noticed over the time.
Yeah.
If you've been like listening from the beginning, a lot of people have told us like, wow, you've come a long way from the shenanigans of the first few episodes. And I agree.
We still got shenanigans now.
But not the same.
You said, but not the bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what
I mean?
I
think like with this one, we are already so far ahead because we have like 3 years of podcast experience basically. That it doesn't feel as daunting.
Yeah.
But there's also like pressure to
do well.
But I'm also like with this one, it's for me like it just feels more for fun.
It does feel more fun, but this is 77 is fun too. But I know what you mean. This is
well, to be honest, a lot of our livelihood comes from this podcast. So like, there's a lot more pressure to make sure that this
goes, huh?
Yeah. But
the
travel one is so new. It feels like how 77 felt in the beginning. Like we're just making it for us, and it's just fun.
Right. Don't get it twisted. 77 is still fun, y'all. We just put you hear what she's saying.
But it's like it's also partly our job.
Yeah.
Like, it's the Instagram page is our job, the podcast is our job, the website, like all of it, So it might seem like we're having a blast, which we are, but there's a lot of thought. There's a lot of sleepless nights and thought that go behind this podcast, and we haven't hit that yet with the traveling podcast. So. But if you haven't subscribed yet, it's if you are subscribed to 77, you probably got the notification for the traveling podcast. It's called Traveling While POC. But if you haven't, you can also go subscribe to that one individually.
Yes.
Separate from 77, which would also help us.
That would help us a lot. So
that we put it in chart by itself.
We put it on here because that may not be your thing. You know what I mean? Like individually, but if you want to rock with us but don't want to clutter up your podcast feed with all those things, we kind of decided that way. But if it's so good, if it's in your heart, just go ahead and like we got our own channel on podcast now.
We do have
so you can just click the 77 Flavors channel and subscribe to both of them. So
and you can also follow us on Instagram. It's also Traveling POC on Instagram, but if you search Traveling While POC, you'll see it there.
Find us, you'll find that.
Yeah.
So,
but
that was it's been fun. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be very fun.
Okay, so here's my highlight of my week.
Okay.
It's kind of guys, it's another crochet story, but not necessarily anything to do with my crochet class.
Yeah, this one is wild.
This one's actually really weird. So a lot of you know that I grew up in Jordan, right? And I moved here for college. And when I was in Jordan, I was one of the very few students that when the king in Jordan decided to open up a boarding school that was mirrored after his school in the U.S., Deerfield Academy, he opened King's Academy, right? And so I was the first class to go there. So I was the first freshman class at King's Academy when it opened in 2009. And what's crazy, we're sitting in the crochet class and we're all talking about like what languages we speak and stuff like that. Mind you, I love this class so much. And
the tea is good.
Yeah, but also like the company is great. I don't know. It's just like it's become my I just have to go. Like I enjoy it so much. But I'm sitting next to someone in the class and I've sat next to her a bunch. We talk all the time, like, but like chit chat, nothing crazy. And we're talking about who speaks what languages. And she mentioned her daughter had tried to learn Arabic. And I said, she's like, she tried to learn Arabic when she was living in Jordan. And I was like, I'm from Jordan. And she goes, oh, no, wait, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Amman, which is the capital city. And I go, where did your daughter live? And she goes, she lived in Madaba. I was like, at the American University of Madaba. Like, that's, for me, logically, you go as a study abroad student, you go to the American University. And she goes, no, she, at the time the king had started this school, I was like, shut up.
Oh, wow.
So her daughter had already graduated college and came to Jordan to King's Academy as one of the not an advisor. They were like a young group of students that came after they had done their school to kind of like help set it up because barely any schools in Jordan are the U.S. system of schools. So we don't have SATs, we don't have APs. We are British. So like all of our schools are British. So the systems are not familiar. The people that came, it kind of like help set the culture up for the school, right? For the boarding. It's the first boarding school. And so these students came, and her daughter was one of the people that came to the school. She lived in the same dorm that I did, and she was my volleyball coach.
That's a small ass world.
That's we're small. Sitting in our public library next to each other in our neighborhood and talking about that.
Yeah, that's small.
Her daughter and I had met like 15, 17 years ago.
That's small ass world.
On the other side of the world.
That's a small world.
Isn't that crazy?
Chicago is so big, but so small.
Literally.
At the same time.
And she visited campus to visit her daughter while I was there. So we, you know what I mean? So we existed in the same space. Yeah. At the same time.
Y'all probably
almost 2 decades ago.
Yeah. That's wild.
We probably had lunch in the dining hall together, at the same space. Like when I tell you the first 2 classes were so small, there was less than 50 of us. You know what crazy. I mean? So it was tiny.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like nothing as drastic, but when I was in Plainfield in high school there, I was in English class, and it was the first day of that English class, right? And we given, going around saying names. I'm Dario, and I'm from here, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, this girl behind me goes, wait, what? What's your name? I said, Dario. She said, such and such. I ain't going to say the name.
Yeah.
But she said, such and such. I was like, get the fuck. That was a girl I had went to 4th grade with. 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
Isn't that crazy?
We met back up in Plainfield. Out of all fucking weird ass places to meet. That is crazy. So but that's across the world.
Yeah.
And decades apart.
Literally.
That's nuts. That's nuts, man. Wow. That's nuts. Hey, that's good. That's good. That crochet class is coming in clutch for you, ain't it?
I just enjoy it because it's so lighthearted. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just fun.
Easy going.
Yeah.
Got a hat a hat made for you. I got a hat. Sarah made me a hat. Mm-hmm. That shit flicking though. Did we talk about that last week? Mm-hmm. Okay, my bad. I'm still proud of it. However, y'all probably let's get to the facts. We got some pretty fun facts today. You probably don't think about Rush Street like this, but we gonna break it down for you. That's what we are best at. And this drink today is
brought to you by Sazerac. Actually, not brought to you by Sazerac.
No.
Brought to you by us.
Yeah, for real.
The bottle was gifted from Sazerac. They just did not ask us to put it on
ain't no
podcast,
plug here. Ain't no plug here. But you can drink whatever kind of yak you want to. But this as a regular, this is gonna be our first time trying. My first time trying it.
Yeah, I made a Manhattan using it. So just a simple little cocktail.
There you go.
Even the little stones in there. So I used instead of an ice cube, I just used whiskey
the little whiskey stones. And got a little cherry in here. Let's go see how that tastes.
Might be too strong, but
oh yeah, it's smooth.
Yeah,
it's smooth. Okay. But that shit hit. Hold on one more time.
Is it strong?
Mm-hmm.
Strong.
Y'all,
it's a very simple cocktail. So
it is. It is simple. This shit gonna be kicking my ass. Y'all, let's get cracking,
I think
man.
There's a shot and a half in there.
Yeah. Okay, listen, I'm ready for it. Shot and a half. I can handle a shot and a half.
Yeah.
I'm a grown ass man.
Ounce and a half.
I drink more than that. I mean, I'm not a drinker, y'all. But I'm a drinker. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Rush Street, like we said, one of Chicago's oldest streets. Now, this dates back all the way to 1837, Chicago's incorporation. Okay.
Yeah,
that's how far back we going. Okay, so we not talking about a street that was once we did the streets. We did the streets. Talking about some streets, things like that. We did a couple posts. First one that blew us up.
Yeah.
But this one was a main trail at one point also. So this has some very huge implications when it comes to the Native Americans that were here for really centuries before we were in decades, before Chicago was even thought of, right? This was once the old Green Bay Trail, aka the Green Bay Road. And this trail was used by the Native Americans to go all the way up to Green Bay. And those trails, if you follow the podcast, you probably know this, but if you don't, these trails are significant because they were trading routes. They were routes how people got to and from. A lot of times, the Native Americans, and then when the Europeans came, they would
conquistadors.
Yeah, right. All of them, they would just set up shop and kind of have posts.
Set up shop is a nice way to say conquer.
Well, I mean, actually, literal shops though too.
I know.
Saloons and shit like that. Not saloons, but that
salons.
Came with. But salon things is getting their hair did.
Yeah.
So this is what that trail was, and so Rush Street is part of that street. Not all of Rush Street. Not a lot of the.
It's like 4 blocks. I would say
Rush Street is long, but
no, I know, but we're talking about 4 blocks.
Probably more, to be honest with you.
Well,
it went all the way to Green Bay. So this the part of Chicago, the downtown part, probably not so much that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that was more so, but maybe to get you to Wolf Point.
Right.
So
to the port.
Yeah, to the port. We'll get there in a second. Mm-hmm. So now that's kind of like the early beginnings, 1837, and we're gonna fast forward to right around in between that time, the 40s and the 50s, because this was the time where all of Chicago's elite were kind of heading to and moving to. Okay, and realistically, people were still on the South Side. The elites were still on the South Side. It wasn't until some bigger names started moving around and start shaking up the
I was
mix.
Gonna say the movers and shakers.
The movers and shakers. They was out there. Just name a few. We saw one dope building on Rush Street that I guarantee you walk by at all times. You want to talk about it?
The McCormick.
The McCormick.
So there's a mansion on Rush that is the only standing home in its style that belongs to the McCormicks in that area. That area was once called McCormickville because of how many houses they owned, and then everyone built around them, basically. Yep. So they're the reason that people wanted to be in that area. The limestone is from Joliet. So, we see that a lot in these old homes that have survived is this Joliet limestone.
Yeah.
And
very fitting that we did Joliet to start the season out with. That's very fitting.
His name John McCormick and his
Robert Hall
son Robert. Yeah. I said Dunn. Son. Yeah. Robert. But it's a really gorgeous mansion, honestly.
Yeah, honestly. And for it to be that intact.
Right.
Look, I couldn't imagine living there. I couldn't imagine living there. I mean, now,
it's great. You would afford it.
Right. This wasn't for black. No,
yeah. No. It never was, never will be.
It never was, never will be. But the reason why we kind of highlight that one because that's one that's still standing on Rush Street.
It kind of stands out too, just because around it there's so much new build. Yes. That it kind of that building, and then across the street from it, a block down, there's an old theater building. But those two kind of just stand out.
Yeah.
and it's like red brick on the side. It's just it's
beautiful.
It's a really beautiful mansion.
And I guarantee anybody that's been downtown and walked around,
you've
passed it. But
it's like by Nordstrom, like that. What is it called? Like North.
A little bit further down, but it's more closer to on the Ontario and where the TJ Maxx and all that little corner is. So speaking of that, I used to work at the AT&T right there, and I would walk past that building all the time.
That's crazy.
Whenever I wanted to go to Jake Melnick's right there, also on Rush. Not a little bit off Rush, but I would walk down there. Jake Melnick's was a very good place. It still is. It still is jumbo ass wings. They definitely jumbo wings. These wings are good. It's fire.
I wonder if they still do jumbo.
They do. Every time when we were down there, I was like, we should go, but then I was like, we got a movie anyway. But yeah, so that's why we wanted to highlight that one. Now, as we go along this timeline in between the 40 and the 50s, Chicago is booming now. Chicago is starting to grow as you know, maybe not our peak, definitely not our peak of fastest growing cities, but you know,
it's growing.
It's growing.
It's getting
and
there.
It's getting pretty rapid too. You know, you got to think we got a lot of industry is starting to kick off here. A lot of we got some buildings that's starting to just on a decade or two away from getting built. So people are moving and shaking down here. Got a fun fact for you, okay? So, 1950. Okay. If you've ever wondered about one-way streets here in Chicago, let me tell you this fun fact. 1950, because the traffic was so crazy right around Rush Street, on Rush Street, specifically Rush Street.
Right.
It was so crazy. Road. Yes, it's the main road. Chicago decided to finally adapt fully the Uniform Vehicle Code of 1931 for one-way traffic in the city, and primarily that street. And if you think about it, that Uniform Vehicle Code was 1931, and I know I skipped, I said a couple decades, 1842. Yeah. So almost 90 years, 100 years is what I'm talking about. So a lot of shit changed. But the Chicago U created or started one-way traffic that year, 1950. Wow. Think about that. It's not too far. And the 1931 was, when they kind of enacted this. And I did a little bit more research, too. Chicago had some one-way streets, but pretty much like a lot of things, we really didn't care about that because it didn't matter too much. However, we decided, we were like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do this one-way street because we had to figure it out. And so, if you ever wondered about one-way streets in Chicago, it started primarily around Rush Street in the 1950s.
That's
crazy. Now, here's another fun fact, and we got to the end. So if you're walking south on Rush Street, you walk right to the Wrigley building, and you walk to a certain plaza right there on the river. Yep. You walk there right there to the end of the road, basically.
Right.
And there once was, way back when, there was a bridge almost 100 years before we are talking about that last date of that fun fact. In the 1800s, mid 1800s, there was a bridge that was used to cross over not Michigan Avenue, the Chicago River. And this was a main bridge. Like, this was the main bridge, right? Like to get across the way. Matter of fact, I read somewhere that 77% of cars used that bridge in that time, right? In the mid 1800s, yeah.
70.
Not in the 1900s, early 20th century. 77% of cars used that bridge, and then 23%, the rest of them, were commercial vehicles. So, you were trying to get into the loop that way, right? But that bridge has some turmoil well before that. Let me go ahead and break this down to you, right? In 1849, Chicago had that floating bridge right there.
Right.
And the floating bridge, what that means is it literally was, in all, basic terms, it was held by rope, right? It was held by rope and kind of like a swinging type bridge. That was destroyed in 1849 by ice storms. twice overnight. Insane. Now, moving forward from that, after they rebuilt that, the next one that was built was in 1857. It wasn't built in 1857, but the next one was an iron and timber bridge. And that one was destroyed in 1857. Also, by the way, that one cost $48,000.
Jeez.
Back then.
Wait, I'm going to look how much that is.
Go ahead, look that up. It was destroyed by, get this, a ship went by, blew a whistle, and a cattle stampede destroyed the bridge.
Wow.
And think about how many cattle you need to destroy a bridge. And think about how weak that shit is.
How weak is the bridge?
Yeah, how weak is that bridge if cattle can just stampede over it and break it.
That's wild.
Yeah. Now, the next one. Go ahead. You got the number?
I do.
48,000?
I do.
What is it?
Ooh, 1.9 million almost.
So $2 million. $2 million in today's time. I mean, that's relatively not bad.
For a bridge.
For a bridge. I mean, think about it.
That got destroyed.
Right. I guess.
Okay.
I'm thinking today's time. I mean, we got that. Not we. You know what I mean? not we. You know, somebody got it.
Maybe if you subscribe to the other podcast,
we might get it.
No.
Now here's the next one after that iron and timber bridge. The third one is simply destroyed in Chicago fire, 1871. That was the most. Crazy. Yeah, that's the most obvious destruction. Now here's the next one. The next one, because that one was rebuilt. The next one was destroyed 1883 by a barge.
You know how they say if let's say a storefront exists and multiple businesses fail in that same storefront,
why would you?
It's just cursed. Why are you still trying to rent it out? Why are we still rebuilding the same? You know what I mean? Like, just think after the third time.
Yeah, no foresight.
Done.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I'm gonna give you a coin. Because this is.
A superstitious person came along and was like,
somebody was in that boardroom was like, hey.
How many times are we going to do this?
So, the last one cost us $48,000. Come on. Yeah, so I think we should rethink how we build these things.
Correct.
First, because the big bad wolf then came through 3 times.
Let's get better.
And so this is what they did. That bridge, of course, was rebuilt.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there was proposal for another throwaway that was pretty popular, and they felt like, hey, this could be a new method to kind of like get rid of some of that. They were trying to help out the traffic before they adopted that rule. And so in 1920, y'all, the Michigan Avenue Bridge was built to help out and alleviate the problem. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it was meant to alleviate that problem. So boom. There you go. That's
a very significant bridge.
Yes.
If you didn't know, Chicago's known for its movable bridges.
We're going to do an episode on that one.
We are. But the Michigan Avenue Bridge, in terms of like the layout of the city and like population moves, is very significant.
Yeah.
It really opened up a lot.
Good ass point.
To like that downtown area from the south side.
Yeah.
And the near south side.
Yeah.
Because like you couldn't reach.
Right.
Certain parts of the city, if you lived across the river, as easily.
And like you said, so we know 18th Street, Prairie Avenue. That was Millionaires Row. Not until they figure out these bridges and like start going over there and start saying, "Hey, look." But fun fact, actually. Speaking of the move, the same guy, I believe. The guy, John M. Van Osdel, he also was the architect for the Palmer House, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I believe so. And so significant. And the reason why I thought of that is like, Palmer was the first one to move across the river and really like do it up and was like, yo, this is the new spot over here. And so, thanks to bridges and thanks to cars.
That move was easy.
Yeah, that move was easy. There's something else really, 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 really cool that it's the most random fun fact you're gonna hear this whole episode. Besides the mayor's the first architect in Chicago, but you want to tell them about the Chicago port?
Oh yeah, so that towards the end of Rush Street, once you hit the Chicago port, which is really like the courtyard. Going down the stairs from the Wrigley building, right under there when you're like in below
Kinsey and Rush. Water Street.
Yeah, Water Street and Rush.
Which is a weird ass street because that's also Kinsey, it's also Water Street, and it's Rush.
It's it's weird.
Yeah.
But that corner is where the first wheat
cargo? Barge, wheat cargo, yeah,
had ever moved
from
Chicago.
From Chicago.
Listen, what a random
say that again.
Thing.
Say that again. I don't think they got you on that.
Let me tell you exactly what year that happened to, because that is actually
the first wheat cargo that left Chicago left from that warehouse.
It was Newberry and Dole's warehouse, and in 1839 they shipped the first cargo of wheat from the port of Chicago, right in that at that corner.
That is. Boy, you know how many times people don't walk past that?
Literally.
I mean, that's a historic attraction right there. A lot of people go there, get married, you walk, you know what I mean?
But do you go down that?
I think people do.
Like, I think people, if you're imagining, right, but like who's down there? I feel like it's the gutter.
It's a lot of parking. So reason why I say a lot of people are down there is because you park down there. And there's a lot of parking. Deidre, she used to, my sister, she used to work at the Wrigley, what is it? The Tribune Tower. She used to work at Tribune Tower, and whenever I worked on Michigan Avenue, I would sometimes use her parking pass. And not that I would walk that way because that was out of the way, but if I'm walking and I'm just kind of killing time, I've definitely walked down there to go up and sit on the river for sure. So yeah, I think a lot of people have been. Ain't that crazy? And
I mean, we've passed it and never noticed it.
Right, several times. And we've said this before. Just look up. Me and Sarah have an eye now. Like, it is almost second nature for us to like look at a building and be like, what is that? At
first, we had to like intentionally look. Now, after a few years, you just notice.
You just look. Our minds wander anyway. Yeah. Our minds now are trained to be like, what is that? Like you were pointing out the faces and the sculptures.
Yeah, I do that. I do that a lot. I was telling Dario that whenever we're walking past a building and the facade just looks so cool and intricate, and then like ironically you'll see like a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm like, I wonder the feeling of the day that this building opened at what it was intended to be originally. And some of these buildings were like hotels or like offices or whatever they were. You know what I mean? Like they were so opulent for the time. And now it's like a Dunkin' Donuts and no one cares about what it was. But like there's so much detail in every piece of stone that is in the facade of the building that I just always think like, I wonder what they were doing. Like what it was like. That's why when we did the Chicagoan episode, it was so fun to me to look through that, because it's like, it gave you a glimpse to that time of like what people were feeling like, even if it was like a slice of the population. Obviously, it was not representative of everyone, but it's just so interesting to me to be like, they're going to like theater openings and like the plays and restaurant openings and clubs and like it's just so cool.
I think the two of the dopest things, not to go back on that episode, but like two of the dopest things, speaking of that, was reading about Sunset Cafe and how they basically wrote us a risk to be up in there. But also they had an article in there that was written by a New Yorker, from the perspective of a New Yorker and their thought process
about being in Chicago.
About Chicagoing.
Yeah.
Now, Chicago, New York is our fifth most listened city on this podcast. So, hello, New York. It's been rivalry between New York and Chicago for a very long time. Yeah. Like we always been second to them. You know what I mean? Like in their mind, we always been second to them. Everything is smaller, and they got it from. It's crazy to see that.
Isn't it?
I'm 40, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up knowing that because of sports, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't like New York sports. I love New York, the city, but like the sports, forget
rivals.
Rivals, you know what I mean? But it's crazy. 130 years ago, 150 years ago,
rivalry.
It's the same bullshit. But it was no sports. You know what I mean? It was just off the strength of who growing faster, so pretty dope. But I digress. Before we almost done with this episode, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, so we talk primarily about the history and the southern end of, the very, very southern end of Rush Street. But if you're on Rush Street and if you are...
You mean west end?
No, the south end. Because north, it runs north to south. Rush Street. But if you are in Chicago as a tourist, Rush Street has a lot of cool things that you don't want to miss. For example, food, shops, Viagra Triangle, which Viagra Triangle is
go there.
It's a made up thing here in Chicago, but it's a real thing. So if you ever come down here and you need a sugar daddy, go down there.
That's where you need to be.
That's where you need to be. But you got the intersection right there of Oak Street, and so you got very expensive cars you can enter on there. You got the literally a block to the east at one point off Pearson. You got the water tower, so you can a lot of dope.
There's a lot of you could just walk up and down. Mind you will stay relatively in the downtown area because it just goes to like Gold Coast.
Yes.
But you'll see a lot of history and a lot of super historic buildings around there.
It's pretty dope because it's next to Michigan Avenue.
Right.
And the thought process, Michigan Avenue is what you want to see.
Yeah.
But realistically,
sometimes,
here's the real truth about Michigan Avenue. Michigan Avenue used to be like almost where the lakefront was. You know what I mean? Like it was like one block away from the lakefront. So, and also there's maybe a bunch of dead bodies around there buried underground because.
Oh, I was like, clarify.
Yeah. No, there might be a lot of from old school. You know, Chicago when it burned down.
Yeah.
We got to rebuild. You know what I mean? Who knows where we put people? But also that wasn't the main road. Rush Street was. Right. So next time you're down here, take a look. Go eat. Go shop. And honestly, just look at a few different sites.
Look for the plaques.
Yes.
There's plaques all up and down that street. So
literally.
You'll see a ton. You'll learn a ton. So,
yeah.
If you did enjoy this episode, please share it with someone you love. It's the best way to support us is to share our content. We love doing this and we want to keep doing it. So please share it. And if you did not enjoy this episode, that's all right.
Don't know what to tell you.
Check back next week. Maybe that'll be tickle your fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Tickle your tickles.
Do these rocks melt?
No, they're rocks. That's the whole point.
I guess that makes them.
Not water down the drink.
Starting to get drunk. Starting to get drunk. That's what that is.
Eat that cherry.
Nah, I ain't gonna do that. You trying to see something sexual?
No.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I don't like cherries.
No.
Oh, let's get out of here, y'all. It's been great. God bless y'all. God bless y'all.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, buddy.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and we hope you loved it.
And if you could, please follow us on social media at 77 Flavors Shy on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter.
If you have any ideas or deep dives that you'd love us to do, please contact us at media@77flavorsshy. That's the number 77 flavors and shy for Chicago.com.
If you like visuals, please subscribe and follow and watch us on our YouTube channel at the same thing, 77 Flavors Shy, or search 77 Flavors of Chicago.
If you would like to support us monetarily, go ahead and click that Buzzsprout link in the description of this episode.
And as always, we gonna see you next week. Peace.